The story begins with a scene of an island in a world filled with brave pirates. 22 years ago in Lobatown, the marine below the world government had captured a man, none other than Gold D. Roger, or commonly known as Gold Roger, the king of the pirates. Vice Admiral Garp told everyone that he had sentenced Gold Roger to death to warn other pirates to stop their doings. He then asked if Gold Roger had a last word. Suddenly, someone from the crowd shouted, asking where Gold Roger hid his treasure. Gold Roger laughed while the crowd was clamoring. He told everyone to free themselves and venture the vast ocean to find his treasure. At that moment, a peculiar red-haired man was seen in the crowd. Seeing the crowd cheering for Gold Roger, Vice Admiral Garp asked his executioner to start the execution. They stabbed Gold Roger and made the crowd silent for a moment. They then started rebellion while Gold Roger laughed, enduring the pain to death. Gold Roger's final words moved people's hearts and started a new era, the Great Pirate Era, setting every pirate in the seas to find his hidden treasure, the One Piece. The scene moved to the present day in the East Blue Sea. A lonely boat was seen with a single crew on it. The boy wore a straw hat and a red vest. He was pouring water out of his slowly sinking boat while talking to a bird about his ambition to be the king of the pirates and to find the One Piece despite his lack of crew and the fact that he couldn't swim. He explained that he needed a loyal crew to help his adventure. He asked if the bird wanted to join him, but the bird suddenly flew away. Suddenly, the leak got worse as the water began filling his boat. He then kicked a barrel and let out all the contents so he could get inside to save himself from sinking. The next day, the boy drifted to the middle of a pirate war between two big ships. A woman who seemed to be one of the leaders of the pirates named Alvida was seen ordering her crews to loot the other ship. She then signaled them to attack. They swung into the other ship and the fierce attack was inevitable. After the attack, Alvida took some of the crew from the other ship to ask them about a man named Roronoa Zoro, who was known as the Pirate Hunter. One of the crew said that after Zoro took a passage to Six's Island and then left, the man also said that Zoro had a list of pirates and their bounty and said that Alvida was not on the list. She was furious and immediately killed the man. She then asked one of her crew named Kobe to clean the mess. That night, while cleaning Alvida's mace, Kobe heard a grunting noise coming from one of the barrels. When he approached, the barrel suddenly opened and the boy with the straw hat came out of it. Turned out, the ship's crews accidentally brought the barrel after the last attack. Kobe was scared, but the boy said he wouldn't harm him. He also said that he was one of the pirates, but Kobe denied it as he saw the boy far from the pirates he knew, thieves and murderers. The boy said that he knew a pirate that was far from what Kobe just said. Back in the past, the Straw Hat Boy was just a child when he woke up and said that a man named Shanks had just returned. It was in a place called Windmill Village 10 years ago. A ship anchored to supply the stock. A red-haired man from the beginning of the film was seen there, talking to one of the ship's crews. It was finally revealed that the child's name is Luffy and he was an orphan. He said that he wanted to join the crew, but Shanks denied his intention, saying that the sea is dangerous and that Luffy was not ready for that. Luffy denied it and said that he would prove it to him. Without him knowing, Shanks was just trying to keep him away from the pirates because he didn't want to lose him. Suddenly, Luffy called Shanks' name while holding a knife, saying that he was not afraid of getting hurt and proceeded to scar his own face. Back to the present, Kobe asked why he wanted to be a pirate. Luffy said that it was the best thing ever when he could venture the seas to find freedom and have a loyal crew by his side. He said that he was on his way to Grand Line to find the One Piece, but Kobe warned him about the danger of the seas and the beast waiting to devour anything on their paths. Luffy seemed enjoying it. They then sneaked from the ship while everyone was sleeping using the lifeboat, but during their sneak out, Luffy accidentally made a big noise and woke everyone. After being confronted by Alvida, Luffy introduced himself as Monkey D. Luffy, the soon-to-be king of the pirates. He insulted Alvida and ensued her anger. At that very moment, it was revealed that Luffy had a special ability to stretch his body like a rubber. He then used his skill called Gum Gum Pistol and got rid of Alvida from the ship. He then asked Kobe to join and become his first crew. The scene moved to a shrine on Six's Island where a man with some katanas was seen lighting candles. Another man then showed up and asked the Katana Man to join his organization named Baroque Works, but the Katana Man, who then introduced himself as Roronoa Zoro, turned down the offer, making the man furious and started attacking him. Zoro could easily defeat him with his unmatched katana skills. Back to the sea when Kobe asked about Luffy's stretchy body. He then told him a story about when he ate a devil fruit, the Gum Gum fruit. It was back then when he met Shanks. Shanks stitched the scar on his face and said that he wasn't ready to be a pirate. Luffy was annoyed and went to a room where he found a mysterious box containing a strange-looking fruit which he later ate. Meanwhile, Shanks and his crews were drinking at the bar when some people came and asked for a whiskey. He said that the bar had run out of it after their celebration and made one of the men irritated. He spilled the leftover whiskey on the floor and embarrassed Shanks in front of his crew, but he was not responding violently and instead decided to clean the mess. When Luffy saw that, he was annoyed, but Shanks told him that not everything could be resolved by violence. Luffy was about to leave when Shanks held his hands and was shocked after seeing Luffy's hands stretched like rubber. Luffy then asked what Kobe wanted to be. Kobe revealed that he wanted to be a Marine to protect the weak. After deciding their first destination to the nearest Marine base, Kobe and Luffy continued the journey. Elsewhere in the East Blue Sea, an orange-haired girl was weakly seeking help. A small pirate ship approached and tried to grab what looked like a treasure chest on her boat. What they didn't expect was the woman was not really needing help. She was pretending to be weak and instead took their ship away, leaving them behind with the small boat she was on before. Kobe and Luffy finally arrived at the nearest Marine branch located in Shellstown. They went to the restaurant and planned to infiltrate the base, but then suddenly, Zoro entered the place. Meanwhile, the orange-haired girl was also there. When Zoro was talking to a girl who gave him some food, a yellow-haired man came and confronted him after trying to help the little girl the man insulted. A battle ensued between Zoro and the man, helped by some Marines. He easily defeated the man, who then revealed that he was the son of the person in charge of the base, Captain Morgan. While Zoro was taken to face Captain Morgan and was punished for his behavior towards the Marines, Kobe and Luffy thought about what had happened to them and planned their next move to steal the Grand Line map from the base. The next morning, Zoro was seen tied in the yard when suddenly, Luffy came from the manhole after trying to find his way to the base. They had a brief conversation where Zoro told Luffy that he had a promise to someone to be the best swordsman. Luffy asked if he wanted to join his crew, but Zoro refused. He didn't force him to join and instead untied him and left from there. Meanwhile, the orange-haired girl, whose name is Name, turned out to be looking for the Grand Line map too, was infiltrating the base using the Marine uniform she stole from a Marine in the bar earlier. But when she was looking for the map, her disguise was found out. She managed to eliminate the guards, but then Luffy showed up and revealed that they had the same intention. They then went to find Captain Morgan's office after finding out that that was where the Marines put the map. Nami revealed that she hated pirates after Luffy tried to recruit her. They finally found Captain Morgan's office, and while trying to find the map, Luffy discovered a hidden contraption leading to a safe hidden underneath the table. Shortly after, Captain Morgan tried to break the door, and they had no choice but to lift the safe from its place, which was thrown away to the ground as a result. They were then surrounded by the Marines, who tried to arrest them, but Zoro showed up to help. Soon after, Captain Morgan showed up to stop them, and while Nami tried to beat the rest of the Marines, Luffy and Zoro teamed up to beat Captain Morgan. After they managed to escape from the yard, they took one of the anchored ships to leave the island, but the yellow-haired man tried to stop them. That was when Kobe showed up and revealed his intention to join the Marine. Elsewhere, Vice Admiral Garp received information about the Straw Hat pirate that stole the Grand Line map and decided to go to Shell's town. Meanwhile, another pirate named Buggy had also heard the news and decided to look for Luffy to snatch the map for himself. Back in the past, when Luffy was trying to use his new ability, the tavern owner, Makino, told him that by eating the devil fruit, there would be consequences. Soon, Shanks showed up. Luffy then found out that Shanks and his crew were after the One Piece, and that he wouldn't return after the venture. Luffy was sad to hear that. Back to the present. Nami was trying to lockpick the safe while Luffy kept telling her about his aspirations. Soon, the safe was unlocked and they found the map of the Grand Line inside. Knowing Luffy didn't know a thing about the Grand Line, Nami tried to explain about it, but suddenly, a flare was shot above them and the smoke made them fall unconscious. Before he lost consciousness, Luffy saw a Jolly Roger and decided to swallow the map to keep it safe. After they woke up, they found themselves inside a crate with all their belongings taken. Nami thought that they lost the map, but Luffy said that he had hidden the map somewhere safe. While they were arguing about Luffy being a different kind of pirate, the crate suddenly opened and they found themselves inside a circus, complete with the acrobats and the somewhat scared audiences. Suddenly, a clown came and Luffy recognized him. He was Buggy. He then asked Luffy to give him the map of the Grand Line. Zoro also introduced himself in front of everyone, hoping they would fear him and let them go, but Buggy didn't seem to fear him the slightest. Cornered, Nami offered to trade Luffy for their freedom. She then tried to distract everyone's attention by showing Luffy's ability and took the chance to run away, but to no avail, she was caught just when she was terrified to see the condition outside the circus tent. The whole town was destroyed. Buggy's men took Zoro and Nami, while he kept Luffy there and asked him about the map. Meanwhile, at Shell's town, Vice Admiral Garp had just arrived to investigate the raid done by Luffy before. At that moment, Kobe had been enlisted as one of the new Marines. At the circus, Zoro and Nami tried to break the contraption holding them. Nami then revealed a lockpick she hid inside her socks and tried to lockpick the lock, But a moment later, someone named Kabeji came to avenge his brother whom Zoro had killed several years ago. On the other hand, Buggy tried to torture Luffy so that he would spill the location of the map, but to no avail. Luffy didn't budge. Buggy found out that Shanks was Luffy's idol, and said that he was once friends with Shanks until Shanks betrayed him. Buggy then took a kid from the audience to torture, and that triggered Luffy's anger. He broke free from the contraption and hit Buggy's head with Gum Gum Pistol, only to find that the hit didn't mean anything. Turned out, Buggy was also one of the devil fruit eaters, and that he could chop his body as much as he wanted. He then beat Luffy unconscious. Back at the Marine base in Shell's Town, Vice Admiral Garp found out that Captain Morgan had lied to him about the raid and knew that Kobe and Luffy knew each other. He then asked Kobe to help him find Luffy. Luffy found himself inside a water tank filled with seawater. Buggy put him there to keep him from using his power. While sinking in the water, Luffy recalled the past event when he was kidnapped by the pirate leader. Back in the past, Luffy was at the tavern after Shanks left. That was when a group of pirates that once embarrassed Shanks came and made a commotion. Luffy tried to confront them, but he was too weak. Shanks somehow showed up and beat them, but Luffy had long gone, brought by the leader of the group. He was brought when Shanks was busy dealing with the pirate crews. In the middle of the ocean, they found themselves faced with a sea beast trying to attack them. The pirate was eaten and Luffy was sinking. Fortunately, Shanks managed to help him before he drowned. The beast attacked and Shanks protected Luffy. With a fearsome glare, Shanks told the beast to leave, and after the beast left, Luffy found out that Shanks had lost his arm for protecting him. He was devastated and blamed himself, but Shanks didn't mind it for the sake of Luffy's safety. On the other hand, Zoro and Nami had managed to free themselves and headed to find Luffy. They found Luffy drowned inside the water tank and Nami cracked it open. That was when Luffy vomited the map from his stomach. After getting the map in his hand, Buggy tried to fight the three. In the beginning, it was not easy for Luffy and the others to fight him, but Luffy had an idea to put every piece of Buggy's body inside some chests and then used his skill to finish him. The three then released all the people there and headed to their next destination. In the Marine base in Shell's Town, Vice Admiral Garp had tied the corrupt Captain Morgan in the yard to execute him. Luffy recalled the past when he promised to be the king of the pirates to Shanks. Meanwhile, Nami was seen calling someone saying that she had found the map. Back in the past, 7 years ago in Syrup Village, a boy warned the villagers about the incoming pirates and he kept doing it day after day, but it was not true. He was just making up stories and people were fed up with that. His name is Usopp. Back to the present, when Luffy was making their own Jolly Roger, Zoro found a leakage on their ship and Luffy decided to find a bigger and better ship to make it to Grand Line. Nami suggested they go to Gecko Island to find one. Somewhere on the ocean, Vice Admiral Garp had started his journey to find Luffy. Meanwhile, Luffy and his friends had reached Gecko Island, but changed their minds to go to Syrup Village to find a better ship there. On the other hand, turned out Buggy was still alive and was still searching for his body parts among the chests when someone came and told him that his boss named Arlong wanted to meet him. He refused to come and the man attacked him, leaving him unconscious. Luffy and his friends had reached Syrup Village, the village known for its best ships. Nami suggested they steal a ship and run with it, but Luffy refused, saying that the ship is part of the crew and that was not how they recruit a crew. Meanwhile, somewhere on the ocean, Vice Admiral Garp invited Kobe to play Othello. Luffy was looking for a ship to buy. That was when Luffy met Usopp after seeing the caravel in the shipyard. Soon, Nami and Zoro showed up, and at that moment, Usopp told them that they could work their way out to get one of the ships there, saying he was best friends with the owner of the shipyard. They then went to a big mansion where they found Kaya, Usopp's bedridden friend. She then invited them for dinner because it was her birthday. They were then taken to the guest suites to prepare before the dinner. During the preparation, Nami doubted Kaya would let them have one of the ships. Luffy then bet that he would be able to convince her to give them one. Meanwhile, Usopp went to Kaya's room to give her a birthday gift and tell his adventure story. On the other hand, in the kitchen, the staff of the house seemed to be plotting something bad for Kaya and the others. Back on the ship, Vice Admiral Garp explained the way pirates work through the game they were playing and showed the strategy to get the best of them. Meanwhile, Luffy and the others were ready for the dinner. At that moment, Luffy tried to convince Kaya to sell one of her ships to him after telling her his ambitions to become the best pirate to ever roam the sea. At the ship, one of the Marine cadets, the son of Captain Morgan, found Luffy's handmade Jolly Roger from his last shipwreckage, and Vice Admiral Garp immediately told Kobe to prove himself and find Luffy and his friends. Later that night, Mary, Kaya's shipyard consultant, was waiting to meet Kaya, but he was intercepted by Claudador, Kaya's trusted butler. At that moment, it was found out that Claudador had plotted to take Kaya's family business for himself. He then killed Mary, who was trying to stop him. Somewhere else, Buggy was caught by Arlong. Arlong was about to kill him until he spilled about Luffy and the Grand Line map. Buggy promised to bring Arlong Luffy in exchange for him to spare his life. At midnight, Luffy woke up for a midnight snack and found Zoro outside of his room looking for something to drink. They then went to the kitchen right before Nami got out of her room to steal things. She accidentally entered Kaya's room and they had a chat. On the other hand, Luffy and Zoro met Usopp in the kitchen and had a chat there. At that moment, Luffy found out from Usopp that Kaya had been sick since her parents died, while Nami found out that Usopp had been friends with her for years after his mother died. While chatting, Zoro asked for something to drink and Usopp told him that there was a wine cellar in the basement and they went there, leaving Luffy who found a pot full of the sup that was made special for Kaya. At the wine cellar, they found Mary's dead body and realized that it was Klahadore who killed him. It was then revealed that Klahadore was once a pirate known as Captain Kuro, the Black Cat Pirates, and the other staff was his crew. Zoro tried to fight him, but he fainted after his head was beaten by a bottle. Quartered, Usopp fled from the scene. Kuro's crew dumped Mary and Zoro's bodies into the well in front of the mansion, and then left from there. Meanwhile, Usopp went to the village to warn everyone about Kuro, but after years of fooling the villagers, no one believed in him. He then recalled his childhood when his mother died. He wondered why everyone stopped believing in him. Suddenly, Kobe was there and said that he believed in him. Usopp then told him about Kuro, but the yellow-haired man denied it as his father, Captain Morgan, had killed him years ago. He then mentioned the Straw Hat Pirate and Usopp recognized that it was Luffy they were talking about. He then led them to find Luffy at Kaya's mansion. At the mansion, Nami found Luffy unconscious in the kitchen. Shortly after, she heard Kuro yelling from afar and decided to hide inside the cabinet there. While hiding, she overheard that the soup Luffy had eaten was poisoned and found out the truth that Kuro and the other staff were pirates. She also found out that they had dumped Zoro into the well in front of the mansion. Outside, Usopp and the marine soldiers arrived at the mansion. Kuro, while disguised as the butler, welcomed them. Usopp told them about Kuro, but he didn't have any evidence to support his statement. Kobe then mentioned Luffy and one of Kuro's crew brought him out. Meanwhile, while Kuro's other crew were washing the dishes, Nami got out of her hiding and beat her with a pan. On the other hand, Zoro, who had regained his consciousness, was trying his way to get out of the well. He then recalled his past. 7 years ago in Shimatsuki village, two people were having a kendo spar. One of them was Zoro. He was beaten again and again by none other than his friend Kuina. They argued until Zoro told her that he would be able to beat her using the real sword. Usopp came to Kaya's room to warn her about Kuro, but Kaya refused to believe him. Meanwhile, it was finally midnight and it was time for them to kill Kaya. Kuro told his crew to lock up the house to keep Kaya from escaping. Nami showed up while panting in Kaya's room. She then told about Kuro, then told Kaya and Usopp to run away from there. Meanwhile, Kuro and his crews had prepared to kill Kaya. While trying to escape through the secret passage, Kuro heard Kaya's coughing behind the wall and used his knives to penetrate it. Thankfully, he missed. Kaya and the others continued to run. Zoro, on the other hand, was still trying to climb up the well after failing with a hook. That was when he recalled his past again. He was fighting with Kuina with real katanas and Kuina beat him fair. Kuina told him that he would eventually surpass her and become the greatest swordsman, but Zoro refused to let it slide. He didn't want Kuina to give up trying because of that. They both vowed to fight every single day to get the best of each other. The scene moved back to Kaya and the others. They finally reached Kaya's parents' room. She was devastated after finding out about Kuro. They then used the lever to open the house lock. Kuro, who was searching for Kaya, realized it after hearing the sound and knew where he had to look for her. Zoro woke up after falling and recalled his past when he found out that Kuina was dead after an accident. He then asked his sensei to take Kuina's katana, the Wado Aishimenji. He promised to be the best swordsman to Kuina. After that flashback, Zoro finally managed to climb up the well and get out of it. Meanwhile, Luffy was brought by Kobe and the yellow-haired man when suddenly Luffy vomited the blue soup. After he gained consciousness, he told Kobe that Kaya was in danger and that he needed to go back to the mansion to help her. The yellow-haired man, whose name was finally revealed as Helmeppo, was fed up with Luffy and was about to shoot him. But Zoro suddenly appeared and beat the other two Marines. Kobe tried to stop Luffy and Zoro, but Luffy silenced him after saying that he wanted to save his friends. In the mansion, Kuro finally arrived at Kaya's parents' bedroom while Kaya and the others hid. On the other hand, Luffy and Zoro had arrived at the mansion. They decided to split up to find Kaya and the others. Kaya and Nami decided to fight Kuro, but he was too strong for them. Usopp tried to help, but he was no help. While Zoro had to deal with Kuro's crew, Luffy had found his way to Kaya and the others right before Kuro killed them. Zoro managed to beat Kuro's crew while Luffy finally used his hearing to fight Kuro. He finally landed a hit and used his skill, Gum Gum Bell, to finish Kuro. The next day, Kaya decided to give the ship Luffy one as gratitude for saving her life. Luffy then named the ship the Going Merry after seeing the resemblance between the ship and Merry. He then tried to recruit Usopp, but Usopp was reluctant because he didn't want to leave Kaya and his village, but Kaya convinced him to leave and promised to wait for his adventure story before then kissing him. Finally, Luffy could have his own ship to venture the vast Grand Line. The only thing they didn't know was that Kuro was still alive and escaped. Kobe apologized to Vice Admiral Garp for failing his mission, but he didn't think Kobe had failed because he actually managed to flash Luffy with his new boat he got after Kobe led him away. They landed a hit on Luffy's ship. It was only then that Luffy realized the one who was hunting him down, Vice Admiral Garp, was his grandfather. The Marine ship tried to land another hit and managed to make a little damage to Going Merry. Vice Admiral Garp told them to surrender, but Luffy refused. Triggered, Vice Admiral Garp took one of the projectiles and threw it with his bare hand right to the hull of Going Merry, but Luffy immediately blew his body like a ball and bounced the projectile back and hit the frontmost sail of the Marines. Vice Admiral Garp laughed as the adrenaline pumped in his blood. Meanwhile, after succeeding in landing a fatal blow, Luffy ordered Nami to sail away from the Marines into the fog. Inside the fog, while trying to navigate their way out of it, Luffy smelled food and suddenly led Nami to find the source. They finally left the fog and found an ocean-going restaurant called Barity with some ships docking at it. Luffy decided to stop by and try their food, but when the waiter asked if they had reservations due to the full tables, Nami had to bribe the waiter to get a table for them. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, a blonde cook was seen cooking a dish when the head chef, Zeph, came and told him to be a server after saying that he was sick of the menu. He walked away from the kitchen and stopped a fight between two pirates. He then served a plate of bread and introduced himself as Sanji to Luffy and the others. Sanji flirted with Nami while asking for their orders. On the Marine ship, Kobe explained that they wouldn't be sailing until the damages were fixed and suggested getting help from the 77th Marine branch nearby, but Vice Admiral Garp refused to do so. He instead called someone named Mihawk to bring Luffy to him alive. Turned out, Kobe was eavesdropping outside the office. At the restaurant, Luffy couldn't pay for the bill and had to wash dishes. A moment later, Sanji entered the kitchen and argued to defend his food, but he instead made Zeph mad and banned him from cooking. Meanwhile, Luffy found Sanji's dish and was amazed when he tried it. Outside, Nami, Usopp, and Zoro were waiting for Luffy. They were talking about the fact that Luffy was Vice Admiral Garp's grandson. Nami then walked to the bar and asked how to get to Konomi Island and found a man who could help her. She was trying to leave Luffy and the others to escape the trouble. On the Marine ship, Kobe asked about Mihawk to Helmeppo. Helmeppo explained that Mihawk was one of the 7 warlords of the seas, the strongest swordsman alive, and one of the pirates the world government picked as allies. Helmeppo explained that the world government decided to cancel some of the strongest pirates and made them their allies to help them secure their work in exchange for their freedom. Kobe was shocked to hear that. Back at the restaurant, Luffy had a conversation with Sanji. Sanji told him about his ambition to find the place called the All Blue, where all ingredients from all the seas could be found there. While they were engrossed in conversation, a starving man came asking for help. Sanji helped him and made something for him to eat. While the man ate, Luffy tried to recruit Sanji and mentioned his dream to find the One Piece. The man suddenly stopped eating and began telling a story of his pirate armada where they had lost dozens of ships and thousands of men in the search for Gold Roger's treasure. He told Luffy to forget the One Piece for his good sake. Nami and Zoro had finally talked about their past. It was revealed that Nami came from a remote small village. Usopp, on the other hand, were too drunk in the background. The scene moved back to the Marine ship. Kobe confronted Vice Admiral Garp about his plan to send Mihawk to find Luffy. At that moment, Kobe realized that the truth behind the world government having an alliance with some pirates was true. At the bar, Usopp was seen talking with someone about his adventure with Luffy without knowing that the man he talked with was Mihawk, the one sent by Vice Admiral Garp to find Luffy. He then introduced him to the others, and only then he realized that he had made a big mistake. Zoro recognized him, Dracula Mihawk, and challenged him to a duel. Mihawk agreed, saying the duel would be held at dawn. He also said that he wanted to take Luffy after the duel. Usopp then called Luffy regarding the problem with Zoro, hoping that he would try to stop Zoro, but he didn't after he found out that what Zoro was about to do was his dream, to get the best swordsman title from Mihawk and to fulfill his promise to Quina. Luffy refused to stop him and said that he wouldn't get in the way of someone's dream. Nami tried to convince him not to do the duel because she didn't want him to die, saying that he was her friend, but Zoro didn't care. Nami was irritated and decided to leave. The very next day at dawn, Nami was seen packing her belongings and was about to leave with the boat, although she seemed reluctant. Meanwhile, Zoro, along with Luffy and Usopp, finally faced Mihawk. Zoro asked Mihawk to use his biggest sword, Yoro, but instead he took his smallest sword to fight Zoro. The fight was heavier on one side. Mihawk didn't seem to sway it while Zoro was trying his best to get the best of him using two swords. He tried to land his slash one after another, but to no avail. He instead got stabbed. In the background, Nami had canceled her plan to leave behind her friends and watch the duel. Mihawk finally admitted Zoro's bravery and decided to use Yoro to fight him. Zoro finally used the Wado Ichimonji too, but his ultimate attack didn't mean anything to Mihawk. Two of his swords were broken into pieces. He dropped the Wado Ichimonji from his mouth and surrendered to Mihawk. Mihawk slashed Zoro's chest with Yoro and left a big scar across his body, but he didn't kill him. He told Zoro to be stronger and to find him. He then asked Luffy about his ambition to become the king of the pirates and decided to leave without taking Luffy with him. After Mihawk left, Zoro vowed to never fail his dream again, and after that, he fainted. He brought Zoro back to their ship. Nami asked Luffy to find a doctor in the Barity. Meanwhile, in Barity's kitchen, Sanji was seen with Zeph prepping for the day. Luffy suddenly slammed the door and asked for help. After hearing about Zoro, Zeph decided to help. He brought his kitchen knives and a yellowtail with him. They arrived at the Going Merry and immediately prepped for the treatment. Zeph stripped down the yellowtail's skin, stitched Zoro's wound, and covered it with the fish skin, saying that it was a pirate's old technique to treat an open wound so as to heal faster. He then told Luffy and the others to stay beside Zoro during his critical condition, saying he was in a near-death situation after the battle. Meanwhile, Koby and Vice Admiral Garp found Mihawk at the office. After asking Koby to leave, Vice Admiral Garp asked about his mission, but Mihawk said that he let Luffy go and said that he wanted to see how he would be after entering the Grand Line. He then uncovered the truth about Luffy being Vice Admiral Garp's grandson. Koby, who overheard it, was shocked to find the truth. On the Going Merry, Sanji was cooking for the crew while Luffy cleaned Zoro's sword. He worried about him and said that it would be best for Zoro to get his sword ready when he woke up. Sanji tried to offer some food for Luffy, but he refused. Seeing Luffy's worries, Sanji told him that being a captain was the toughest job as he had to make a decision. He said that it was Zeph who told him. He was once captain of the Cook Pirates and was known as Red Leg Zeph. The scene moved to the past. 9 years ago on the East Blue Sea, a ship where little Sanji worked as a cook was attacked by pirates. The other cook escaped from there and was killed by the pirates, while Sanji stayed in the kitchen, holding a knife. Soon, the leader of the pirates, the Red Leg Zeph, walked to the kitchen and found Sanji's cooking. He added a spice and made Sanji mad. He tried to attack Zeph, but he was too weak for him. Zeph was about to kill him, but when Sanji mentioned the all-blue, Zeph suddenly stopped. Shortly after, a high wave struck their ships, and they both ended up stranded on a rocky island in the middle of the sea. Zeph brought 2 sacks of food and gave Sanji the smaller one, saying that he was bigger than Sanji and needed more food. He then told Sanji to stay on the other side of the island until he found a ship. They were stranded there for tens of days. Sanji tried to salvage as much as he could from his food and kept it as long as he could, but he eventually ran out of it. One time on the 25th day, he saw a ship nearby. He tried to call for help, but it was in vain. He was too far from the ship his voice to reach. On day 70, Sanji had been starving for days and decided to get some food from Zeph, but when he got there, he found out that the other sack was nothing but treasures. Turned out Zeph gave all the food to Sanji and ate his own leg to survive. Zeph said that he had been searching for all blue his whole life and said that it was real. He gave all his food to Sanji, hoping that he would survive to fulfill his dream, knowing they shared the same dream. Back to the present, Sanji told them that he and Zeph were stranded for 85 days and Zeph acted as a captain and let him live with the food. Luffy said that he would do the same to save Zoro. He then left to see Zoro, only to get blamed by Nami for what Zoro got after the fight. The scene moved to Vice Admiral Garp's office. Koby was seen cleaning the aftermath of Vice Admiral Garp's wrath. Suddenly, the man himself returned to apologize for what he had done. He also realized that Koby had found out about Luffy being his grandson. Koby confronted him about his plan to stop Luffy because no matter what he did, Luffy would never give up his dream of becoming the king of the pirates. Vice Admiral Garp seemed to understand Koby's point. At the Barity, some fishermen came to find Luffy. The leader introduced himself as Arlong. Nami overheard that and immediately warned Luffy, but Luffy didn't seem to be afraid at all. He went to Barity and faced Arlong himself. Turned out, Arlong found out about Luffy having the Grand Line map from Buggy and asked for it. But of course, Luffy refused to give it, resulting in Arlong's anger and a battle between them. Zeph tried to attack Arlong with his pistol, but to no avail. He was instead attacked by Arlong's crew, and Sanji immediately went to help him to fight them. Meanwhile, at the Going Merry, Nami revealed that the reason she said she didn't have friends was that she didn't want to lose one and she wouldn't have to if she had none. The fight between Luffy and Arlong was about to end before Nami finally showed up and told Arlong that she had the map. It was finally revealed that Nami was a part of Arlong pirates and was close to Luffy so she could steal the map. She then stopped Arlong from eating Luffy and told him to dump him in the water. It seemed that she did that not because she wanted to get rid of Luffy, but to save him. Thankfully, after Nami and Arlong left, Sanji jumped into the water to save Luffy. Luffy was disappointed after knowing that Nami left him. Meanwhile, at the Marine ship, Vice Admiral Garp conveyed his intention to go all out to hunt down Luffy. At the Barity, Sanji came to help clean the mess after the fight. Zeph told him to stop helping him at the Barity and chase after his dream to find the All Blue. Sanji refused because he wanted to help Zeph, but Zeph insisted. He said that he saved him not for him to stay and quit his dream. Sanji was forced to go. Meanwhile, Luffy went to Zoro and said that he was devastated after Nami left them. He said that he needed Zoro, and miraculously, after telling him to wake up, Zoro suddenly woke up. Luffy was so happy he hugged him. Zoro then told him that he had become a great captain and that Nami's leaving was not his mistake. He then vowed to stay by Luffy's side until they found the One Piece. Before they left Barity, they restocked their supplies, and finally, Sanji came and offered to be the crew of the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy welcomed him happily. Before they set sail, Sanji gave his goodbye to Zeph and thanked him for saving his life. Zeph wished for Sanji to find the All Blue, and finally, Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates set sail, not to the Grand Blue, but to find Nami first, as Luffy said that he didn't want to find the One Piece without his whole crew on board. Turned out, Luffy had snatched Buggy from Arlong and was sure that Buggy would help them to track Nami. They then headed to Konomi Island, where Arlong set his base. Back to the past. In a village around a tangerine plantation named Cocoa Village 8 years ago, Nami lived with her family, a stepsister named Nojiko, and her mother. Nami had put her interest in maps and navigation since she was little, and she stole a map book to satisfy her curiosity. Her act was found out by her mother, and she was forced to return the book. Nami refused and ran from home. Her mother chased after her and later found her sitting alone under a tree. Her mother approached and told her a story about when she found Nami and Nojiko. It was revealed that Nami was not her real daughter. She was still serving as a marine and was having a war against pirates in the Oikot Kingdom when she found Nami and Nojiko. After finding them under the ruins, she decided to take care of them. At the present time, Nami was told to meet Arlong at what seemed to be a map room. When Arlong came, he immediately asked for the map and then gave Nami another job to collect some money from a village, Cocoa Village, the place she came from. Meanwhile, Vice Admiral Garp and his platoon had set foot on the Barity to find information about Luffy. They met Zeph and immediately asked about Luffy. Zeph said that he didn't ring a bell and instead offered for free meal for them. Luffy and the others finally set foot on Cocoa Village and found the condition of the village so bad. They then saw what seemed to be a police officer collecting money from the villagers. Soon, Nami showed up. One of the villagers, who turned out to be Nojiko, confronted her and left from there. After that, Nami took the money from the officer and saw Luffy and the others. She asked the reason behind their visit to the village, and Luffy innocently said that he wanted to bring her back to the crew, but Nami refused and left. Back in the past, Nami returned the book he stole to the police, but shortly after, a woman ran in panic, telling everyone that the pirates were heading to their village. Everyone ran in panic to save themselves when the pirates, who turned out to be Arlong and his crew, showed up. In the present time, after receiving a rejection from Nami, Luffy went to the police officer's house to ask him about what happened. The police officer then showed them Nojiko's house and told them to ask her instead. They then went there, only to be welcomed by a gun pointed at their head. Thankfully, Sanji managed to convince Nojiko to talk after offering to cook her something in return. Meanwhile, Vice Admiral Garp was having a feast at the Barity. Somewhere on Konomi Island in Arlong's base, there seemed to be a party going on. Nami showed up to meet Arlong to talk about some kind of deal they had, but shortly after, the Marines, led by someone named Captain Nezumi, showed up and collected money from Arlong. Turned out Captain Nezumi was a corrupt Marine. He milked some more money from Arlong and twice their deal, and Arlong asked them to move to somewhere else to talk about it. Meanwhile, at Nojiko's house, Sanji had done the cooking and they had dinner together. After the meal, Nojiko told them a story about the day their village was attacked. Nami and her mother went inside the house in a panic. The mother told Nojiko and Nami to hide under the house while she faced the pirate herself with her gun. Soon after they hid, Arlong came and her mother was too weak to attack him. He then collected 100,000 berries from her as a tribute, but later found out about Nami and Nojiko. He asked for 50,000 berries for each kid, but their mother didn't have enough money to pay. She decided to sacrifice herself so that Arlong would forgive her daughters. Arlong, without any hesitation, shot her dead in front of Nami and Nojiko. After hearing such a heartbreaking story, Luffy went outside and Zoro followed him. He said to Luffy that Nami might have changed and they shouldn't be chasing after her anymore, but Luffy believed that Nami might have her own reason to do that. Back at Arlong's base, Captain Nezumi finally received the money he asked, but he accidentally offended Arlong and made him mad. Afraid Arlong would attack him, Captain Nezumi returned half of the money to him and left. After that, Nami reminded Arlong about their agreement, and after Nami left, Arlong seemed to realize something and asked one of his crew, Karubi, to bring Captain Nezumi back. The scene moved to the Barity where Kobe and Helmeppo were seen going to the bar. There, Helmeppo found out that Luffy was Vice Admiral Garp's son. They also found out that Luffy and the others were heading to Konomi Island after they sailed from there. Both immediately told Vice Admiral Garp about it, and they set sail to chase after Luffy. Before they left, Zeph warned Vice Admiral Garp to just let Luffy go. At Nojiko's house, Luffy and the others planned to raid Arlong's base. Meanwhile, Nami was seen digging something. It turned out to be a chest. Soon, Nojiko showed up and attacked her after seeing her digging what seemed to be her mother's grave. Nami then convinced her that she misunderstood her. She then revealed the reason why she joined Arlong was because she wanted to free their village. She had gathered enough money to buy their freedom, and the chest she buried beside their mother's grave was the money she had gathered. Nojiko realized that Nami had endured the burden all by herself while a whole village, including her, hated her. She was so sorry to hear that. Soon after, Captain Nezumi showed up and forcefully took the chest from Nami. She tried to rebel, but to no avail. Nami then tried to chase Captain Nezumi to get her chest back. Meanwhile, Arlong had gathered all his fisherman crew to start a war against humanity at his base. Nami couldn't find Captain Nezumi and was so devastated. She regretted ever working with Arlong and stabbed the tattoo on her arm, but soon, Luffy came and stopped her from hurting herself. She begged Luffy to help her, and of course, Luffy was willing to help his friend. He, along with Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji, had made up their mind to avenge Nami, but soon they realized that the village was attacked. They immediately returned to the village, finding all houses were burned down to ashes. Nami blamed herself for what happened, but the villagers had been told about her sacrifice for them and decided to fight back the pirates oppressing them all this time. Nami told them that it was her battle, but Luffy said that it was not just hers but theirs. On the marine ship, Vice Admiral Garp finally met with Captain Nezumi. He had found out about Luffy and Arlong's piracy on Konomi Island. That day, Arlong and his crew were preparing their attack when suddenly, Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates showed up to raid the base. Nami and Luffy went to find the Grand Line map while Sanji, Zoro, and Usopp dealt with the fishmen. While Sanji and Zoro fight the other fishmen, Usopp was chased away by Chu, one of Arlong Park's officers. Inside the map room, after finding the Grand Line map, Luffy and Nami were faced with Arlong, who brought his big sword with him. Luffy managed to break the sword with his bare hand and helped Nami to get away from the room. Outside, Buggy, who they brought inside the bag, felt that his body was near and asked them to let him out of the bag. After he attached himself back to his body, he immediately ran away from there. Meanwhile, in the forest, Chu thought he had landed a hit at Usopp and turned his back, but suddenly, Usopp shouted his name, and with his newly developed bullet, he managed to blow the alcohol bottle in Chu's hand and defeated him. Back at the base, another officer of Arlong Park, Karubi, showed up and tried to defeat Sanji and Zoro. They were overwhelmed by Karubi's fighting skills at first. Meanwhile, inside the map room, Luffy had difficulties defeating Arlong as he had physical strength way more than a normal person. Arlong said that Nami would return for him because she needed him, but Luffy denied it as he said that it was not Nami who needed him, but he was the one who needed Nami. He then realized that he could defeat him by destroying the map room that he loved so much. He started punching the pillars and cracks started forming on the walls, making Arlong off guard. The scene moved back to Sanji and Zoro, who still tried to defeat Karubi. Karubi badmouthed Nami for having such weak companions, and that triggered Sanji's wrath. He then used his finishing move, Muten's Shot, to defeat Karubi. Soon after Usopp returned, they saw Nami running out of the building and saw it cracking from the outside. Inside the map room, Luffy started using his finishing moves to defeat Arlong. He used Gum Gum Battle Axe to defeat Arlong and bring down the entire building. Nami saw the entire building destroyed and shouted, calling for Luffy. Turned out he was alright as he came out of the ruins. That night, the entire Cocoa Village had a party to celebrate their freedom. Sanji cooked for them, and everyone seemed to enjoy the food. Meanwhile, Usopp was telling his made-up story in front of the villagers, until suddenly, the Marines showed up and tried to arrest them. Vice Admiral Garp ordered his men to arrest Luffy and his crew, but suddenly Kobe and Helmeppo stood to stop him. Their effort was nothing in front of Vice Admiral Garp, as the other Marines still did his order. He then asked Luffy to surrender, but Luffy refused. He challenged Luffy to a duel and beat him easily, despite Luffy using his finishing moves. He then held Luffy and told him that he was not ready to be a pirate, but Luffy laughed it off and said that he would be the king of the pirates and that he would find the One Piece. Luffy's laugh made him remember Gold Roger's face when he was executed, and he started laughing too. Surprisingly, Vice Admiral Garp let Luffy go and decided to let him be what he wanted. Luffy found out that his grandfather was just testing him to see if he was ready to fight for his own or not. Vice Admiral Garp told Luffy to be ready for what's waiting for him out there, knowing he was on his own now, but Luffy said that he had his friends to watch each other's back. The next day, Nami went to visit her mother's grave. Soon, Majiko showed up and said that she was proud of her. She asked if Nami had to leave the village, but she had made up her mind to venture with Luffy. Meanwhile, at Najiko's house, Kobe came to meet Luffy and gave him his very first wanted poster. Kobe told him that he had the biggest bounty in all of East Blue. Luffy was so happy to hear that. Before parting, Luffy told Kobe to be a good marine, and Kobe told the same to Luffy to be a good pirate. Luffy then brought his wanted poster to show it to his friends. Usopp saw his face in the background and thought that he was famous. Zoro warned him that with a bounty on his head, every single bounty hunter in East Blue would try to hunt him down, but Luffy was not afraid because they were not planning to stay in East Blue and would soon head to venture the Grand Line. The scene then showed some of the characters that had met Luffy and saw his wanted posters. Makino saw it and smiled. Kaya saw Usopp in the background and was happy for him. Zeph put the poster in his kitchen and was proud of Luffy. Buggy saw the poster and swore to kill Luffy. Alvida was also there. She swore to kill him too. At the marine ship, Vice Admiral Garp saw the poster and was somehow proud of his grandson. Shortly after, Kobe and Helmeppo came and said that they were ready to accept their punishment. Kobe said that he didn't regret his action against Vice Admiral Garp's order, and so did Helmeppo. Vice Admiral Garp said that what they had done was right. Following their heart is what makes someone a man, and to punish them for their right doing, Vice Admiral Garp would train them himself to become the best marine. Meanwhile, somewhere on a beach, Mihawk came to see Shanks and his crew. Mihawk gave him Luffy's first wanted poster, and he was so happy to see that. They then celebrated that by drinking and inviting Mihawk with them. On going merry, Luffy and his friends gave a surprise for Nami. They planted 3 tangerine trees on their ship to remind Nami of her village. Nami then revealed a big surprise for Luffy. They had replaced their ship sail with Luffy's Jolly Roger, a skull with a straw hat. Luffy was delighted to see that and shouted in joy. After that, while navigating through the map, Nami realized that something was off and asked it to Luffy, but Luffy, being a good captain, said that he believed in Nami as his navigator. He then gathered all the Straw Hat crew, and they revealed their ambitions one after another, and with that, their journey to find the One Piece finally began.